Okay, so we're live. Hold on, everybody. I got to do my normal awkward transition where I have to change the settings on Facebook to make sure that if you comment, I will be able to see it. So I know this is really just weird. Edit audience. So here we are. We're a little bit early today because that's how it worked out today. But you can watch this video at any time. So I don't know, everybody might be in church, but that's cool. So I wanted to introduce myself again like we normally do. And I'm Lauren. I'm one of the associate pastors at Messiah. And I've been interviewing like a different person or people every week. We took a break on Easter so that we could share stories. And I, usually every week I'll try to tell people like, why do we want to do that? It's strengthening, it's storytelling is something that like humanity has done throughout the ages. It's just like almost helps us survive. When we hear other people's stories, we're like, oh my gosh, yes, even if it's not our story, something about it connects and resonates with us. And we're able to use that for our own strength. And I was reading a book this week about, it was called Know My Name, and she writes, it's a memoir, and I was listening to it, but I stopped it to write this down. She said, our darkest place can actually light the way forward for others. And I'm like, yes, that is why it's so good to share our stories. It's like such a gift for other people. So I'm really grateful for people like Ashley and Chris who are just willing to do this, because I know it's also kind of like, even if you're so comfortable with your story, it's still vulnerable. So thank you guys. And I want to give Ashley and Chris just a little moment to say anything. What do you want to say about yourselves? How do you want us to know you? How would people describe you?
Well, I am your typical, don't judge a book by its cover person. I have a long history that is completely different than what you probably perceive when you sit next to me in a pew. But I think overall, I'm very positive and happy. And I'll tell you a little bit about my story and how I arrived to this point in my life. And I think that's what we're kind of going to do today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But, I think, Lauren, you're doing important work here. This is something that, might seem like just your average Sunday little chat with Ashley and Chris, but I think it does lend a hand to, even if one person hears this and it sits with them differently, maybe that will be the change that, challenges other people to think differently about the person sitting next to them, or even, groups of people. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're super positive. It rubs off on me.
We're going to get to that. Yeah.
No matter
I'm ready.
How stressful the day is, she's always positive, which is good. It's nice to wake up to. Let's see. I'm relatively positive as well. Happy-go-lucky. Glass always full. Let's see. Raised in South Carolina near the beach, so I am drawn to the outdoors. That makes me extremely happy. I like to celebrate life. Sometimes Ashley thinks I'm a big kid, but I'm all about having fun. Yeah, I don't know. I'll let you start asking questions. Maybe that's a little easier to.
Yeah, it's hard to think of how to describe yourself, but I can tell people about you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
So Ashley and Chris joined Messiah, when was it? Over a year and a half ago, right?
Yeah.
It was before the pandemic. And then they were going to get married this July or this April. You were going to get married right around right now.
Yeah.
And they asked me to do it, and I was so honored, but also nervous because I'd never officiated a wedding. But I thought that's a really long time away. No big deal. I can figure it out by then. But then everything changed, and they're like, actually, we're going to move it to July of last year. So I was like, oh, I can do this. So we did it, and it was so fun.
It was fun.
We did meet a few times before, to do some premarital counseling. I don't know who's an expert in that really, but just to like bring up questions that, you know, to think through. But it was funny because one of the ways that I learned, you know, something I learned about Chris is that he's like very go with the flow kind of. Do you think so, Chris? You know, so he kind of runs late a lot, you know, doesn't really sweat it.
We were asking about that when you came to the wedding and I was still, like putting things together. You were like, what Ashley means to you.
Yeah. I got there and Chris was like kind of dirty, like in gardening clothes practically, you know, and I was like, wait, I totally get it now. This is exactly what Ashley said, because Ashley is, you know, like on time and everything is totally in order. Mm-hmm. But I love that. I was like, oh, this is perfect, you know.
Yeah, we're definitely like opposites, but in the best possible way.
Yeah, it's like you totally can pull the best out of each other. And you're beekeepers. You were doing a beekeeping class. Mm-hmm. Yep. So they recently moved and they did move their bees with them. So that's really cool. And and in their old house, it was just like beautiful, really tiny. So I think that you just needed a new neighborhood and a little more space, but a huge yard with like an amazing garden. So one day you all might live on a farm, you know, and be able to do that again. Mm-hmm. Now their grassy area is small.
Yeah.
So exciting stuff. Mm-hmm. So like normally I'll start this off by saying, you know, I think people who normally watch know that I ask the same couple of questions. I am still going to do that, but then I'm going to go a little bit differently. So I did give them a little fair warning yesterday. I hope Ashley shares the same thing. But what Bible character do you all identify with the most, or what Bible character kind of like jumps off the page or evokes anything in you like more so than others?
Why don't you start?
Okay. Well, I have a favor to Noah because I love animals and I'm also like a rule follower. I like instructions. And I'm always the one that's like, Chicken Little, the sky is falling, you guys, like, we need to do this. So, like, he and I identify with each other, I think. And then also, like, I love to think of, like, the Noah's Ark story as probably a child story to me. But I just think about, like, all the animals, which is wonderful, like, this concept of being surrounded by all the cool, like, big cats and stuff. But then I get to the snakes, which I'm terrified of. And I always like question if like the instruction there was missed by Noah. And I was like, don't bring the snakes, get the unicorns, and
that
up.
What happened there? Where are the unicorns?
Where are the unicorns and why the snakes? So it's like, you know, like anytime I see a snake, I'm always like, Noah.
That's funny. What about you, Chris? Did you think up anything?
I guess you're reading Genesis now. Mm-hmm. I guess Adam kind of stands out to me. Long story short, he was given so much responsibility and opportunity, and you know, you can make decisions. You have freedom, and part of that was once Eve came was leadership. And this is his wife, this is his partner. And he was entrusted and empowered with, you know, leading he and Eve. And obviously something went wrong there. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, it kind of stood out. It makes me think of the life that I have with Ashley and our family. And, you know, am I going to be a good leader? Maybe more questions came up from it than comparing myself to him. But I want to make sure that I am taking what God has given me and what I'm studying and reading in the Bible and kind of implement that in our lives and be a good leader. Part of that was getting Ashley into church. I think that she's always had some level of faith. But I was going to church by myself on Sundays and she would say,
like, where are you going?
Why are you leaving? So one Sunday she decided to come with me, and then she started asking more questions, and then we started the process of becoming members, and then, you know, here we are. So just making sure that, you know, I have a good foundation and kind of figure out where we're going. That's Lily. Figure out where we're going and make sure that I'm a decent leader in our family. So.
And Chris would come back from church and tell pretty much the entire sermon back to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be like, but what about this? And what about this? And what does this mean? And then he'd be like, Ashley, why don't you just come with me so that you can hear it for yourself? And I'd be like, okay. And then we get into the habit of like going to brunch after, which was nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would talk about it. Mm-hmm. And now I think ultimately I was like, okay, I definitely think our relationship is serious and I want it to be like faith-based. So then we both became members because Chris had been going to Messiah for years. Mm-hmm. And then we took the class together and that was super fun. It was just like a bonding experience, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is like, actually, I don't think I've asked you this question before. I knew that story that you just shared, like, you were like, where are you going? Mm-hmm. But what role did God or church or faith play in your life leading up to that ever? I mean, maybe we'll get into that if you think that will be part of your story.
Yeah.
Did you go in the church?
Yeah, I grew up in church. My parents and my grandparents were very heavily involved in like the politics of church. Mm-hmm. But and I'll get into the whole like childhood thing, but we were children that were seen and not heard from. So, going to Sunday school was like, you go to Sunday school, but it wasn't like, we hope you get something out of it. It was just like, this is the place you go on Sunday. And it was more so like daycare than like teaching you about the Bible or any Bible story. It was a lot of like yard sales and stuff like that. It wasn't like faith-based.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's one of my big like things now with the church is not Messiah, just like all the church, the big church is that sometimes we get so busy doing those sorts of things. We forget, what are we offering that the community center down the street can't do, especially Crystal. If you go back to like the first wilderness story, she sort of shared the reason she didn't really think she would teach children, but she was asked to teach children. So she started researching and she realized that most kids form their identity of God or whatever before the age of 5. That just really goes to show how important it is for us to be like actually teaching even those little ones.
Yeah, a lot of my like Sunday school memories are like sand art and eating popsicles and like taking hand prints. But I don't know why we were doing any of that. Like what Bible story that was attached to like went over my head. And maybe that was my fault, but I didn't. There was also a lot of kids in Sunday school. So probably the child left behind there. But, I don't know. I guess I didn't get much out of it, but we were like charged with, okay, today we're learning about X, Y, and Z. But
yeah, and you were surviving, which we'll get to.
Then, yes.
on that note, we talked maybe last week before about teaching Sunday school at some point because we were like, if we have a kid, like, how would we tell these somewhat complicated stories to a child? And then we're like, maybe we should become, Sunday school teachers and then figure out how we would tell our kid and then spread that. But
yeah,
on that.
Chris and Ashley have just like an amazing heart to want to serve. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, like I started teaching the 2-year-old Sunday school. I told you that yesterday, thinking like these are just basic lessons, but I was like transformed by some of those lessons in just really in ways that it was like I knew God was speaking to me in that scripture verse, whatever basic scripture verse it was really cool to see how God shows up even in those, 2-year-old types of things.
Definitely.
All right. So what about this? I usually ask either or, but just in case there's something you do want to say, are there any scripture verses that have like you've held close to your heart or that have guided you throughout your life or just something you're thinking about a lot right now?
Well, I can't honestly say throughout my life because that wouldn't be accurate. But I will say when we planned our wedding, there were definitely passages that were important to us, mostly surrounding like gardens and love and that sort of thing, but not your
Proverbs,
proverb.
Corinthians was in there as well. A lot
Yeah.
of love stories, Song of Songs for sure. It's funny. I read the Bible cover to cover a couple of years back, and I was looking at like notes that I wrote down this morning, and there was.
This is dated November 2016.
Yeah.
Wow.
There were two that stood out. I'll read the shorter of the two. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 20 and 21, I believe it is. It says, "May the God of peace, who through the blood of the eternal covenant brought back from the dead our Lord Jesus, the great shepherd of sheep, equip you with everything good for doing his will, and may he work in us what is pleasing to him, through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen." And this morning when I was reading that again, I was like, why did I put that down? But what we talked about earlier, serving, we're here to serve his will. It's his agenda. And I myself get selfish and do things that, I want to do. But at the end of the day, I think that's the most impactful and powerful thing is to pray on it and then like ask God, like, what do you want me to accomplish today? Like, take me where you think that I will best serve you. And that was the verse that stood out to me. Like, let's serve his will. So
yeah,
that was something. But yeah, all the stuff about like love and having a wonderful wife and worth more than rubies, all that stuff. As a kid, I was like, okay, that's cool. But now more than ever, it makes the most sense. So yeah,
I love that. Yeah, that first verse you shared reminds me, like, Adam Hamilton is an author. I don't know if we've read a book together by him, but he one time said he wakes up every morning and gets on his knees next to his bed and prays, like, not my will, but yours. Like, I'm like, wow, if I prayed that prayer every morning, how would my life be different? Like, what would God do with us if we every morning surrendered our days to him and every moment to him?
Definitely.
All right. So, and then real quick, I ask people about the Bible character because I've learned, or somebody says that often that has something to do with our call, so we can kind of explore those characters and see, like, what is it about themselves? I think both of you kind of did describe that. And so to sort of be able to receive that, like, that might say a lot about you. And that's really cool. Okay. So Ashley, I think the way we're going to do it, for this particular wilderness story, Ashley and Chris decided, like, we'll just focus on Ashley. She does have a pretty amazing story, but all stories are important. I was telling them yesterday, like, these stories don't have to be earth-shattering. We can learn something from everything. But Ashley will share, and Chris will jump in here and there, so will I. And so we're just going to start off by letting Ashley tell the story, and then maybe I'll follow up with some questions. So hit it, Ashley. It's all you. My
wilderness story is absolutely wild. So here we go. I am from Massachusetts, and I grew up in a very affluent home where my dad was a very successful business owner. We had everything under the sun as far as, like, from the outward looking in. But the inside of our house was awful. My mother was a preschool teacher in the next town over, very involved in the police of the town, very involved in the politics of the town, school committee, you name it. My dad was one of those people who, never, like, saw success as, like, business and money, never, family or values or anything like that. He was never someone who wanted children and was very clear about that. And my mom wanted children, but for the wrong reasons, which were basically like photo opportunities and to have, like, a real tie in the teaching community to be able, like, I raised 2 children.
Look wholesome.
Like a wholesome look.
Mm-hmm.
Like this narcissistic, like, feeding, like, Yeah.
Not really so pleasant. And then I have an older brother, 3 years older, and we are literally night and day different. We were raised exactly the same, and that's fine. Like, there's lots of children or siblings who are different. But in my wilderness story, the differences between my brother and I are truly what made me who I am, because I was able to learn from his failures and mistakes and do like literally the opposite. My father, he worked around the clock, probably the textbook businessman that, you know, wanted more, and more was never enough. So we had a physical abuse filled home. My parents would lock us in our room. We would not be able to come out. Like I said, children were seen but not heard from. We had to look a certain way when we were in public. We were not allowed to speak. We were abused by my father. He would physically beat us pretty much every night when he would get home from home from work. Like violent beatings too, and angry because we existed, not because, you know, we were doing anything awful or bad. We were afraid of him. And the beatings were to the point of broken bones. We were suffering. We were hungry. We, you know, were in a position where I was afraid at the age of 3 if I was going to live. And 4, 5, 6, as I was going to school, other kids were like fascinated with toys and like making friendships. And I was literally just like, someone save me. And I would cry and complain to teachers, and they couldn't understand why I was in this situation because my parents were so seemingly wonderful, right? My mom was an icon teacher in the surrounding town, and my dad was known for having a national company that was very successful, and nobody was going to go up against that, right? So up until the point, I mean, this happened all the time, and we would get to the point of maybe I was in middle school, my brother was approaching high school, and now like the beatings were like, don't get it on their face. So that was awkward. I was in dance school, but that wasn't for me. It was like, I was good at it, but it was truly for like my mom to be involved in the dance community. And I saw that as like an opportunity to escape from, you know, the madness of my home. But overall, my father really, truly like leaned in on my brother as being like, if he had to pick from either of us, he would pick my brother because he was the son. And possibly at that point, my dad was looking at him like, possibly you're someone that could take on my business. But he was still like hurting us. And my mom would enable it because she just was a good wife and didn't want to get in front of her husband, challenge his, you know, actions. So she would look away at us being hurt. And when, you know, I always say, like, I felt like I wasn't meant for that family. I handled the beatings differently than my brother did. He went to like drugs, alcohol, like hanging out with the wrong crowd. And I was like, must do my schoolwork. I got to get out of this town. Like, every place I looked, there was like corruption and evil. And I just knew the best thing for me was to get far, far away. I tried running away. I was not successful. But because well, I just tried to get like out of town. I didn't have like a whole good plan, but I just wanted to get out. I didn't care. I was willing to be homeless. I was willing to, you know, struggle outwardly outside of the house because I already knew what struggle inside of the house was. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you would get picked up by the cops and they would bring you right back home because that's like one of the Harris kids. So, you know, I think they kind of were keen to what was going on, but nobody was, you know, willing to stand up to my dad. So once I got into high school, my brother was like a ringleader drug dealer. And we would have like the FBI flip our house. regularly.
Wow.
Which was crazy. And I would hear stories about my brother like selling drugs on school grounds, on baseball fields, like in surrounding towns, like all this stuff. And he became like a kingpin in the drug community, which was like, what is going on? Now I have to deal with that and this guy at home. And my brother was like viewing his drug dealing as like successful business, because that's what he like took from my dad, as like, I'm making money and I have like a community of people now. And it kept him out of the house. Like at that point he had enough money to like get out of the house for a couple days and come back, and he would come back all messed up. And you know, my parents viewed that as like he was making something of himself because he was like successful at it, but they enabled him in the fact that like they paid for his car, they paid for his phone, and they like allowed it to happen at the house. So at that point, I was very clearly like, that is not my future. I'm not going to become a drug dealer, and I'm certainly not going to be like my dad. My mom is like an empty shell of a human. So I need to get out. And I had made friends, but like arm's length friends, because, you know, people will come over and they'd be like, oh, your house is so beautiful and your mom is so generous and she makes cupcakes and she like designs t-shirts. I'm like, this isn't really what it's like, people. Like when you're gone, we all go upstairs and we get beat. Like it's not like what you're thinking. And you know, I started telling one particular friend from a different town, because I knew that I could like trust this person and he wasn't really heavily involved in like the politics of my town. And his family started to realize like I would have a limp, or I would come crying, or sometimes as generous as like giving me a bowl of food, I would like sob, because I would be like, this is the nicest thing anyone's done for me. And I took all of their generosity and eventually told my whole story to them, and they let me stay there. And I truly believe that that is what like saved my life. I know that my dad was like willing to kill me, which was like so scary. And I know that if that actually happened, I would probably be like on a TV show, or I would be like a story of a lost girl somewhere. And I truly believe that in my heart. And their influence on me has done nothing. Like beating me, that doesn't bother me, like whatever. I was 100% able to like use all of that negativity as like strength to like go away. Like I gotta go. And I worked around the clock. The minute I turned 16, I had like 5 jobs. I worked through the night. Like I never slept. I got jobs at law firms answering phones from like 11 p.m. to 3 in the morning. Wow. I did anything under the sun. I scooped ice cream. I scooped cow manure. I would do anything. So I worked at this one law firm. Well, I worked at 2 law firms at the same time. At the second one was like 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. answering phones, like getting faxes and stuff like that. And this particular law firm was like in a very bad area of Brockton, Massachusetts, where like people were getting shot all the time. And I had a vehicle because I like saved all of my money, but the car was not reliable at all. And notoriously, every single time, pretty much, I would bring that car when it could get me there into the city. Someone would steal my tires, and it would be so frustrating because I had no money to like keep replacing these things. And people would like shoot at us when we would leave the law firm to get to the car, or like one of us would call for a cab and someone would like stay in the building to like look down and be like, okay, it's here, go. And we would, because we didn't have cell phones, so we like ran across the street and there'd be like dead bodies, there would be drug addicts. Yeah, so crazy. I'm 16 years old in the middle of the night. My parents have no idea where I am. And like, I was just doing that to make like $10 an hour, which was like a lot of money in the 90s. But that was pretty much enough money between like that, scooping all of the things, and the other law firm to be able to like stay at my friend's house and like give a little bit of money to be able to support myself there, but truly like save money so I could continue to get out of the town.
Mhm.
And then when I started applying for colleges, it was very important for me to like get out of state. So I went to Rhode Island because I had to get out of state, but also be able to get there. So I got scholarships to go to school, and I didn't.
Academic scholarships or
Yeah, academic scholarships, and then I had applied for financial aid to cover like the last of it, and the school denied my financial aid because my parents are very wealthy and they couldn't understand why my parents weren't gonna like bridge that gap. So then I had to take like my own school loan out, which was so confusing as like an 18-year-old with no parental assistance. You're like, I'll take whatever interest rate you can give me. I just need to get out of town.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that, and I got to college. The first thing I did was like get as many jobs as possible. And I truly did work like around the clock. You can ask my college roommate. I was like working schoolwork, and then like 2 minutes of Ashley, and then back to work.
Yeah.
And during that time, I truly looked at college as like my savior. Like I got away, and I picked the wrong school because it was way too expensive for me, but it gave me, you know, a scholarship there. But once I got there, I realized all of these people have nothing in common with me. Like they don't understand struggle like I do. They wouldn't even begin to like appreciate that. And everything was so expensive. So I wasn't trying to like keep up with the Joneses, but I was definitely like trying to survive there too. So that wasn't like the best decision on my part either. But at this time, like my parents were like trying to find me, and they ultimately did find me. And they would send like nasty notes. They sent me a dead rat once in the mail. Yeah, just bad. And, you know, I would try to go see my grandparents for holidays, and they couldn't really grasp why I was, you know, what happened to Ashley? Like, why did she run away? My parents made me seem like I was like a lost child that ran away because I didn't get something I wanted. And my grandparents were like questioning that because they knew me well enough to know that like she didn't seem like that when she was a kid. And I think at one point my dad told them I was like a prostitute, which was like crazy. And I remember having this like conversation through letter with my grandparents. And I just laid out for them like facts. I'm probably never going to see you again. I want you to know my side of the story. And I want you to understand like who is in your family. And they took it, listened, read it and like sat on it and wrote me back and said, they understand. They don't expect me to come around. They're going to stand by their daughter, but they truly don't feel like my dad was a good person, and they understand like why I would get out. But they kind of gave me like acknowledgement that it was okay to leave. They accepted it.
Yeah, like almost a permission that it was nice to have, even though you were going to do it anyway. Yeah,
definitely. And I mean, my college roommate, God bless her, she truly, her family saved my life too. They wouldn't let me graduate college because I couldn't pay my bill at the end, and I couldn't afford my cap and gown. And I was like $10,000 in debt with the school, and they weren't going to let me graduate. And without that degree, I had a job lined up, but I needed my degree to get that job. And her dad paid it and said nothing about it because he was trying to plan a graduation party. And I just told him, you know, I will absolutely go for my friend, but I really don't know if I'm going to graduate because of this. And he called the bursar's office and paid the bill. He didn't even mention it to me. And it was so like the nicest thing anybody had ever done for me. Like it was just between that and my friend who allowed me to like stay at their home where they had like a million children of their own, it was just those two moments were like rock solid to me as like somebody saved me and took me in and, you know, accepted me for who I was to help me go someplace else. And, you know, this whole time, so all of this, like let's say from like 3 years old to like today, the reason why I'm truly so positive is because like my heart knows that if I keep going, I'm going to find little people along my way like this, and that I'm getting better every day. I'm learning a new trade, or like I'm definitely like a jack of all trades. I can fix anything. And it's because like being a survivor teaches you so many skills that you don't at the time realize you're learning until, you know, you're through that challenge. And nothing in this world can stop me because I know like I can do anything and I am very, very, very strong, and there's nothing that is more scary than having nobody. So if I can pull myself out of that wilderness with like a positive light inside of me, then I know I can get through like anything that God or the world challenges me with. But truly, like later on in life, probably like listening to other people's stories with their faith, I realized, you know, that positive light inside of me wasn't just like Ashley being positive and like, you know, you can do this. This isn't so bad. You still have your shirt and you're good. You're not getting beaten anymore. It's truly like, hey, you know what? This moment is God like pushing you through, but maybe I wasn't able to like comprehend faith at the time because I was so worried about just getting out and surviving that God's message to me was like something I could understand, which was like, be positive because there is less out there that you could have, or this, you could be like seriously injured, or like he could have like hurt you so bad you were in the hospital and nobody would have come and saved you, or something like that. And I don't know, like I truly believe that this like weird positivity that I continue to have is like God's way of allowing me to have his presence by like understanding in a way that makes sense to me. And, you know, I think that's why it's so easy for me to wake up with Chris in this like, you know, beautiful home and lovely relationship, adorable dog, I have a nice job. And as much as this is like a dream come true, in comparison to like 2 decades ago, I was in a completely different place in my life. So how could I ever wake up in a bad mood? How could I ever like look at the fact that, you know, the light bill is $50 more this month as something that's like, ugh, so terrible when, you know, I'm fine. I'm okay. And I think like to allow things to, you know, ruin my mood or like change my outlook, it's kind of like doing God a disservice within my like positivity inside of me that I understand, because how could I do that when he gave me such a strong gift to get through things, to like let something so little like stumble me. So it's like my job to be this way, and it's come simple to me. It's very easy for me to be happy. So
she's always telling me, you need to change your mood. See,
you need to change your mood.
Yeah. But
it's true.
It is true, and I'm proud of you. I'm proud of your story and what you know have been able to accomplish and where you are in your life now. And it's a lot of, I mean, there's plenty of stories. We can be here all day telling a lot more stories. But with that said, like your positive outlook and you know the person you are today, going through all that stuff, you know, that's obviously amazing. And what you started with, don't judge a book by its cover. When I first met her, I had no idea. And she would like give me little pieces here and there. And I'm just like, you are amazing. I know I couldn't have gone through that. Like my life pales in comparison to that. Like it was pretty much smooth sailing for me growing up. But just to hear these stories, and I'm just like, you did what? You had to run to do this and that. And it's just amazing to hear. And as you get to know her, you will definitely see how, of an amazing person you are.
Mm-hmm. I remember you saying, like, when we were talking on your deck, and I was like, immediately when Ashley started sharing, it's like, tears start to fill your eyes and just like amazement, not pity, but just like, whoa, like you are so strong. You were saying like your response in preschool where your mom was a teacher was like, if you weren't even getting yelled at, if just something was like asked of you and you felt like there might be an issue, like you would just run to a closet and shut yourself in. And
I would love to
do. Stuff. And the other teachers would be like, why is she doing that? And your mom would just be like, she's a really weird child. Right?
Yes. It was so, and like to the point I almost felt I probably was brainwashed when I was a kid to think like I felt people's feelings as only negative. Like I will literally ask Chris 100 times a day, like, what's wrong? Is everything okay? And that's because like I have this like gut that something's always like wrong and I want to fix it, or I want to like, get around it before it turns into something bigger where I can't fix it anymore, or I wasn't aware of something. And like that will shut me down. But it's not, I don't know, like I view those moments as like, I still like at times, of course, bad things still happen to me and I want to like go run and put myself in a closet, but I don't anymore, thank goodness. But I definitely like mentally can put myself in a closet and be like, all right, how am I going to get out? But yeah, definitely. I feel people's feelings more than I would say most people feel them. I feel animals' feelings like more than I feel people's feelings, which is probably why Noah was my person. But I identify with animals so well because they can't speak. Like I get it. Like I try to my dog is like a photocopy of me, and adopting an animal was so important to me because I wanted to save a life. And and then I gave this dog like literally the best life ever. And I think to myself, like, I hope to be the good person that came through for her, and as like somebody who came through for me. And I remember another point in my life where God came through in the strangest and hardest of ways. Is he doesn't always come in good times to give you good messages. He gives you messages of like, you have to learn from something. And literally right when Chris and I had started dating, my best friend, the one who gave me a chance in high school to stay with him and his family and all their chaos, which literally saved me. That was the point. That my best friend, his father died, and he was spreading the ashes of his father in a plane. He was a pilot, and the plane crashed, and he died on Chris and I's first date. So much to unpack there, but here I am. I talk to him every single day, and he was a lifeline still in my life, like as I continued on. And it's so easy for you to look at that situation as loss and, heavy burden, awful. And I did. It took me a while to get past that. But I also looked at that situation like God was like, you have Chris, and, don't count who's not with you anymore, like count who's still there. And though I transitioned a large responsibility onto Chris at that point, and he probably didn't even realize it, but I truly was like, this is God's way of showing me like there are other people that can save you too. You don't need to continue on relying on somebody who's married, has children of their own. You don't need to talk to that person every day, and you have your own person now. And I think that helped me get closer to Chris quicker than it would normally have been in a normal relationship. And I still think about my best friend every day, all day. And I think about how grateful I am and how much I needed that person. And I just believe that I have an angel now, and I have a best friend in Chris, and that is a great thing to have in comparison to having a lifeline that has his own life now.
It's definitely amazing that with everything like that Ashley's gone through, that she's still an upbeat, positive person. She's not bitter. She's not negative. And again, when we first started dating, even up to this point, very easy to love and very patient and very kind and welcoming. All positive things with as much like wild wilderness as she had.
Yeah.
It's very impressive, and
So like one thing that is all true, everything you just said. And we talked yesterday, but we already have talked about this before too, is like one of the things, you're just like the survivor, you're fiercely independent. You don't want to accept things from people. And so we laugh about it, like when we're all together. But talk about that a little bit. Like, how is that for you? Do you feel okay with that? Is that how you want to continue? Is that something you could say someday, like, I would like to be able to receive easier gestures?
Yeah.
Whatever.
So I recognize it's a deficit, but here's the deal. So and this is on me, but I just like hear other people's struggles and also compare my own struggles to like my present day, like, why is it raining on this day where I wanted to do this thing? And like, I don't think that I need a prayer in that. Like, I don't need somebody to help me there. I feel like because I have seen so much bad and I'm in such a good place now, it would not be like I don't know, like it wouldn't be other people's prayers are worth that time to God. Like, I don't view it as that. And Chris and I have talked in the past, and we were talking about like praying and like, how do people pray and what do they do? And he said something like, pray for himself. And I was like, you pray for yourself? Like, I do not pray for myself. The last person I think to pray for is myself. And then I quickly realized, like, after the fact, if I'm not praying for myself and I'm not asking other people to pray for me, nobody is praying for me.
Mm-hmm.
So thankfully, I have this like very positive, strong, guided spirit in me that I believe is God's like, providing me a handicap. But, I need to learn to accept help. I don't. I overfill my plate, and I will work until 3 a.m. if I need to get everything done. But
I think so. There are like 2 key people or families that helped you get to where you are.
Yeah.
And their help, I guess you received their help out of necessity.
And I didn't ask for it.
And you didn't ask for it, right? But there's small, like when we were moving, for example, we still had to work and we needed a place to stay. So we went to my brother's house just for a few hours while we were showing the house. And she was like, I don't want to get in their way. That's a lot to put on them. And when we got there, she kind of relaxed, and she realized that it's the, loving family thing to do for people to, help others in their time of need. But she still struggles with that. But I will say, since we've been together, you've gotten better at that. And understanding the family that you grew up with. And my family's not perfect by any means, but there's a lot of us, and there's a lot in the Northern Virginia area that we can rely on, that you can rely on.
Yeah.
And it's getting better, but obviously something that you're still processing and working on.
Family in general like shell shocks me in like a really weird way. I have no control over it, but Chris's family is very, very big, very loud. I'm not a loud person, and I get like mixed up in it really quickly and easily. And almost immediately I'll shut down and shut down to like just be quiet and like kind of watch. Mm-hmm. And it's because like I don't know how to communicate like that. Like I don't know how to roll into a conversation that's loud. It sounds like fighting. It kind of freaks me out. But they're not, and like this like picking on each other for fun thing is weird to me. And I just view that as I don't want to be involved in that because I don't know how I'm going to react or how they're going to perceive me because I can't communicate on that level. But I so badly wanted a family through like my spouse someday, and I would daydream, like fantasize about this when I was a little kid, like this idea of like a family that like was kind and nice, and we had dinners together, and you know, people that read you stories and kissed you goodnight and all of that. And when Chris and I started dating, he was like very family oriented, and then I met his family, and I was like overwhelmed immediately. I was like, they're wonderful people, but I'm overwhelmed. And I'm still there, but I'm getting better. I think that's true, but I still have like a long way to go. And yeah, definitely. I feel like I'm burdening people when I don't even have a chance to ask for help because I just need it. And in that situation, when our house was being shown, we had to take our dog with us. And I was like, oh my goodness, we're bringing a dog to this person's house and they have a young child. And, you know, it was so much for me, but it would have been so simple if the tables were turned to let them come and stay at the house. I'd be like, yes, let me make you waffles. And I will like, roll out the red carpet because that's exciting for me. But to like put some of that pressure on somebody else, I would immediately like shell shock in the weirdest way. And I feel weird when it's happening too. Like I can feel it happening. And another thing I do is like, we're only staying for a couple hours, right? We're not staying all day. Like to assure myself that there is an end to this and I will be okay. I just need to do 2 hours or something like that. But that's absolutely like a thing I need to work on. So I guess if I were to like accept help and accept prayers, it would be in the form of like that learning of how to like embrace other people without feeling like a burden to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yesterday I hear an echo. I hope you guys hear an echo.
Yeah, no.
Okay, good. We were talking about this, and I was saying what I've experienced in my own life is like, because I also am somebody I don't like to feel like and I didn't want people to really know me, I guess, when it came down to it. And then I realized through some suffering in my own wilderness stories that like, as I had to, kind of like what you're saying, like you were in these positions where you had to accept this help. Like you didn't have any choice. You had to, it was to survive, and that saved your life. I realized like the more I did that, as difficult as it was, my relationship with God, it was like growing also, almost as if, and this is my own theory, who knows if it's actually real, but almost as if as I practiced with people, those skills directly translated to my relationship with God, and then as I practiced with God, being vulnerable and all that, it directly translated to my relationships, to where I was allowing more people to really know me. And I just thought that was really, for me, affirmation from God that I was on the right track, as difficult as it was, So yesterday I was telling Ashley, maybe you need to pick like a person, one person that you trust, and just like ask for something or receive. I know it might be a while before you want to do that, but it is a gift to the other person, like sometimes I have to remember that, like, you love to make people waffles and have the perfect table settings, and that's like almost a gift to you, I think, to be able to do that for others. But it is harder to flip that around.
Yeah. I think another thing is, I definitely struggle with accepting people's help, and I never think about it as like, this is how they show love, or this is how they, want to embrace you, or this is their like faith to show help to other people. And it's selfish of me to like take that away from somebody, but I do not think about it in the time that it's happening.
Yeah.
And another thing is, in Chris's family, he was like, they got to get to know you. They got to get to know you. And I say to myself, like, I hate leading with I'm like a broken person, because like, I don't love that. Like, I don't have, this fantastic story. And one of the biggest concerns was Chris's family was going to look at me like, why are you with this girl? Like, she has so much baggage. And like, she could never understand our family because she has no way of knowing family values. So I remember like sitting down with his mom and being like, but I understand it. Like, it was so important for me to get it out to her. And she was like, okay, like, whatever. But because they didn't need me to do that. But leading with, to understand me, you have to know all of this other gross stuff is like such a weird predicament to be in. And like I said, like, you can't judge a book by its cover, because on the surface, I might just look like a weird person to you, in the sense that she's super independent, strong-willed, she doesn't want anything from anybody, and that's just going to be it. Maybe snobby. And it's not snobby. It's just like, I have a deficit. I'm working on it. But, you know, I was never like embarrassed of my story, and I never looked at it like somebody could learn from it. I didn't think of it like that. I was just like, all right, well, if you're going to be close to me, you got to know it all. And here it is. And everybody's reaction's like, I can't believe you're here. And, you know, like, I hear their reactions, but I don't get it like they do, because it wasn't simple by any means, but it was just like, I have this very strong light in me that pushes me through, to the point where like, I don't even really remember what happened yesterday, because like, my light is already 4 days ahead of myself. And you know, it's so easy for me to tell Chris, hey, like, we got to be on time and you should have better attitude. I sound like a coach, like a life coach, and I'm in no position to be a life coach. But it's so easy for me to be like, Chris, don't be sad about that, or like, don't get frustrated with the person behind the service counter, because that's not an actual thing. Like, that is so stupid in real world problems that you shouldn't even let it like attach itself to you.
And back to the family things, to kind of double down on that. Like, we want to have kids one day, and she was just, I guess, having a conversation with herself, and she was like, when I become a mom, I'm going to tell my kid that you have a place here, that you will be loved, and, you know, we're going to take care of you. So everything that happened in her past made her the person she is now, but doesn't necessarily affect her in a negative way. So when we do have a kid, it'll be nothing but love and like positive and sunshine, and, you know.
Yeah, almost like in an eerie way, because like I say, I go after Chris all the time, and I'm like, are you okay? Is everything okay? Are you upset about something? I feel like I'm going to be the same way towards a child of mine. I'm going to be like, you're wanted, you're loved, this is your home, everyone wants you here. To the point where that kid's going to be like, I'm super loved, I'm super wanted.
Like, I know mom.
Might over course correct.
Yeah.
But we're either going to like create a monster, or like a very sweet young child that's just like, you know, a super smushy, loving thing.
Normally, like, when we're in our Sunday morning group and we do like prayer requests, or we go around and I try to ask like, how is it with your soul? Because I want people to get used to like praying for themselves, you know. And Ashley's always very optimistic. Sometimes we just say like, how is it with your soul? You can answer in weather terms, like, are you sunny? Are you cloudy? Ashley's always like, I'm really sunny, you know. And so normally, like, when I have a person like this, I'll be like, you know, it's okay for us to feel cloudy, because that's the other side of the coin from our joy. You know, we have to feel both things. Yesterday, though, talking about it with Ashley and Chris, we were just chatting, and I was thinking like, oh, you know, it makes sense. Like, you had that. That was how you survived. Your optimism is why you're here and who you are. God gave that to you, and that is an important piece of who you are. I was like, oh, like, no wonder, you know, no wonder this is Ashley.
Yep.
So it just sort of clicked for me.
And I always say, like, God's a parent, right? He looks down on his children and he's like, all right, well, that one turned out okay. And I think he looks at me like, all right, she needed help. I gave her this strong light. I gave her this like will, but now it's like over serving her to the point like she can't recognize like the kindness and generosity around her because she can't receive it. So he's probably like, I gave you this big weapon of power and you can't like, I know he's like frustrated in the most loving way with me.
Yeah.
But like, I get it. I'm going to work on it.
Well, the other thing,
the littlest ways. Probably gonna start with animals. And then I'll move on to like one unsuspecting person that I don't really know, so I can like run away from that. And then I'll build on to someone that's like in my outer circle. But like Mary and Chris, you know, before when we were engaged, I didn't ask him to do anything. And he was like, life is great, right? Like I don't have to take the trash out. I don't have to do anything. And then, you know, we kept having these conversations about like asking him to do things. And he was like, I need you to tell me what to do, like write it down. And that was so hard for me to do, to ask him to like take the trash out or ask him to like have a chore, because like, I don't want to do chores. I don't want to ask him to do chores. I want him to like me. So when we finally like split up the chores, it was awful for me because I felt like I was punishing him. But now I have no problem telling him, like, why do you leave the dishes in the sink to make me insane? I don't understand why you don't want me to be happy. But I think he does it to be, like, cute. It's not cute. Tell him it's not cute.
That's funny. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I could go on about that, too. We leave our dishes in the sink, Ashley, because, like, I don't know. You're talking to the wrong person. You need to talk to somebody who's cleaner than I am. I want to say this when you're talking about like your difficulty basically accepting love from other people. And you're saying like, this is a deficit, you know, I don't think it's a deficit in you. Like, I think, we look at it like, you know, especially you and where you come from, you know, of course you do this, but we all sort of look at ourselves in ways that like, I need to fix this or that. And we forget that just exactly the way we are right in this moment, just every single thing about us, that is just exactly how we're supposed to be. Like we are enough with everything about us right now. If we didn't change one thing, like God is looking at us and loving us and not thinking, oh, you got to change that, Ashley, you got to change that, Chris, you know, I think we forget that. So I wanted to tell you that because it's not a deficit, you know, it's definitely not a deficit. It's just life, you know, I think all of this is just life and we want to slap labels on things. It's so much easier to do that, but it's just part of the whole thing, you know, like we came into this world like Adam over there, Adam, Chris identifies with Adam. Like, you know, we came into this world and immediately, you know, there's issues like that is just life. So I think if you never changed a thing about either one of you, like you are just perfect the way you are. So you take that in, look into my eyes. I'm telling you the truth. And yeah, I'm sure I'm going to think of a million other things because as you're talking, I think of things, but if I don't write it down, it's completely out of my mind as soon as you're done talking. Chris, how do you, when we talk about things like accepting love, I'll just say it like that, like how does that feel to you in the relationship? How is it?
It's easy for me to accept love. I think to your point, I don't think there's anything that she needs to change. I tell her 1,000 times a day that I love her and she does the same, just as we're in passing. But I accept it easily. I try to encourage her to, you know, accept it from certain people or my family, usually around the holidays or like a birthday. We have my nephew's birthday today. Just getting her not more involved with the family, but just accepting them for who they are. And if they go above and beyond to do something for you, accept that. That's part of, you know, the family that we have. But I don't think I have a problem with it. Right? She's easy. She makes it very easy. So it's just, I don't know, it's like the best feeling in the world. And I guess I try to be a mirror and show that back to her.
Yeah.
And I think we've got a good foundation and a good relationship. So I think between us, it's pretty easy. Maybe others within our circle, it's a little bit more challenging. But she has a couple friends that, to your point, I think that she could maybe reach out to in a subtle way and not necessarily ask for help, but allow those people to help and give their love. But
yeah. And it is okay to feel like while it might not be like a deficit, it's okay to want to like grow in certain areas. And I always think, with my own growth, when it's God like convicting us or prompting us or guiding us, like there's always going to be a sense of hope in that. Like what you're seeing, this light that has carried you through, which yesterday we were talking, and you said that's sort of how you've always, like looking back, you're able to see God in your life the whole time. Is that like light that was in you? There's always hope with that. When we start taking things on, like, I just like suck at this and I need to, like there's a sense of shame, like that is not, I always think that's how I discern where is this coming from, because that is never from God. God always inspires us to change, not shames us to change.
Definitely. I think she'll notice when, like in work, for example, if I get super stressed out or going through something, she's good about recognizing that and like checking on me, like, hey, is everything okay? And we will run errands or whatnot, and she'll say, well, I noticed this week. Going into next week, why don't you try doing these things? And she's pretty good at giving advice. And yesterday, I was giving like feedback on that. I was like, you know what? I tried what you said, and it actually worked, and I'm a little bit less stressed out this week. So kudos to her for.
You should listen to me.
I do. For sure.
I just was like reading to John, my husband. I was reading to him this thing on Instagram from the Gottman Institute, this little blurb about like something that is really good for relationships is when you're able to just like give this feedback in the moment, not like hold on to it, not bite your tongue, but be able to deliver stuff, graciously and everything. And I was like, we do that. Maybe not always graciously, but yeah, it's good to have those.
I like specifics. I like to hear like what thing it was that you liked, so that like, not that I can so much do that again, but like, so that I can understand that affected you. Not like,
yeah,
I love you. Like, that's lovely. But I like to know, like, I love you because you did this for me. And that's like,
tell me more. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, what else? Anything else you guys think? What would you tell somebody if somebody were watching or hearing this and they're experiencing anything like what you've gone through, Ashley? Like, what would you have to say to them about just anything? What do you think would be important for them to know?
Things. One is like, don't be afraid to go to church later in life, because unpacking some of like your time, whether it was good or bad, it's never too late. I think that's important. It can be overwhelming because it seems like everybody knows what they're talking about around you, and everybody knows the verses or knows the songs to sing or like knows what to hit when singing out loud. And like, I'm not there. I don't know. I love the songs. I love the music, but I can't read music, so it's hard for me to figure it out. But church in general to me has like filled a hole in my heart that I didn't know I had until like going. And then once I started going, I was like, this is good for me.
Sense of community. Yeah. I
felt like a sense of community, and I felt like this is the family that I understand. Like, it's a group of people that I can manage my relationships with, and they have all good reason to be there. There's no hard feelings. There's no like negativity that's surrounding the church. It's like all people that love you and want to hear about your day and like have similar passions. They want to help other people. That for me was like groundbreaking. I don't feel like, because maybe at the beginning you don't have a lot to offer because it's all a lot, but find your spot within that. And like our small group on Sunday is a great spot for me because it's small enough that I can, still have a presence. But if I don't have anything to actually add, it's not going to be the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I can learn, that's all that matters. And sometimes like I'll say a couple comments to Chris, like while it's going on, like, do I understand this right? Like, what are we talking about here? And that's great. But like overarching of my entire story, is that whether you are going through something difficult or you're struggling with something that's been a lifelong struggle of yours, that there's an end to everything, right? You have to put in some work to get there, but as long as like you have a plan to find that light and that end to it, you'll get it.
Mm-hmm.
And wallowing in like the hardness of it isn't going to get you to the end. Like nothing good came from that.
Mm-hmm.
But by adopting like positivity and being grateful for what I still did have in my life was enough to keep pushing me through. And, I relied on the things I was good at, which was like being a nice person, being a happy person, and accepting the place I was in my life without resenting it. Like, this is what I was given. And, I've never said like, I wish I grew up a different way or I wish I had a different hand dealt to me. Like, this is what made me me. And I accept that. Like, I embrace it. But that doesn't mean that that narrative is what's going to carry for the rest of my life. Like, I can completely change that. And the moment that you can feel that is so empowering and your life will be different.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yep.
Chris, do you have a nugget?
Yeah.
Nugget?
The Bible says there's Lily says a lot too. Sorry.
Hold on. Tell me your nugget.
Lily, so the Bible says there's a time for everything, and I do believe that. In sports, they say trust the process. I think as you go through experiences, good and bad, you may not enjoy it, but I think having an understanding or an appreciation of even the bad kind of helps as well. And maybe not like as you're going through it, but as you look back on it, you can look and find wisdom in it, or you can find what that experience was, and maybe it's like I can take this knowledge and change something moving forward. But I don't know. I think as I've gotten older, I'm enjoying life more and taking time to appreciate as much as I can. And if it is bad, then like, okay, well, I understand it. Maybe I can't change anything now, but I can, to her point, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I can see myself through it. One more thing, surrounding yourself with good people. You say the church, I say you, right? Positive people that want to make an impact, people that want to serve their community, just positive people in general. They will definitely help you get through,
Yeah, people who will make you like a better version of yourself and always inspire you to, use your God-given gifts. And yeah. Let me pray. I want to pray for y'all before we go, and then we'll just sign off. And I'm like just so happy that you were willing to share with us. I know that both of you together, share this story in a way that is like so life-giving and important. So thank you for that. All right. So everybody pray with me. Almighty God, thank you so much for Chris and Ashley, for the light that you have put in both of them, for drawing them near to you in times where they didn't even know that you were doing that. Thank you for giving them strength, for giving them courage, for giving them perseverance, for introducing them to each other, for bringing them to this church, for allowing us to know them. Thank you for the gift of their sharing. And I ask that you bless them, that you bless their relationship, their home, every step they take. It's clear that, you have brought Ashley and all of us, but today, Ashley's story, we've seen how you brought her through that, and we know that you use our suffering, and we want to do that for you. So just give us guidance in that, and in each day show us the ways that you can use us, and just show up for us in ways that we would never expect. We want to receive from you, God, and it is, for whatever reason, not always easy. So just kind of clear out the path for us so that we are, just very receptive to all that you have for us, because we know that even when we think our issues are small, that you don't really register things that way, that you just have a lot for us, and all we have to do is receive. Thank you so much, God, for loving us. We love you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. All right. So, Chris and Ashley, you could stay on. I'm going to end this. Hopefully I don't. Okay. Bye, everybody else.